and welcome to Unraveled. I'm your host, Marvi Sirmed. The grief from Pahalgam still lingers. 26 lives lost in a sudden, ruthless attack. Families shattered, a region thrown back into fear. And almost instantly, the weight of responsibility was placed across the border on Pakistan. In the hours and days that followed, India suspended water treaties, downgraded diplomatic ties, expelled personnel, shut down visa arrangements, and whatnot. Swift and symbolic steps, I agree, but as the political machinery moved into action, another story was unfolding quieter, but just as urgent. In Kashmir, people braced for fallout. Increased security checks, arbitrary detentions, intensified surveillance, and for many, a haunting sense of being caught once again between two hostile narratives. In today's episode, we look at what came after the attack, the retaliatory posture toward Pakistan, the escalation in Indo-Pak tensions, and most importantly, what it all means for the everyday Kashmiri citizen whose life is shaped by both militant violence and state retribution. Joining me is someone who has observed and documented these realities for decades. Anuradha Bhasin, executive editor of the Kashmir Times. Welcome, Anuradha ji, and thank you very
And
much.
thank you so much.
First of all, on my behalf and on behalf of entire team of New Wave Global, we offer our condolences and offer our clear-cut condemnation of the dastardly attack on the Kashmiri people. No words can suffice to express the shock, the horror, and the sadness and grief at this time. I can only say that we mourn with you.
We are together in this tragedy, and we should be.
Absolutely.
It is a human tragedy, and we should all be.
It's a human tragedy, and we should be united in grief, not divided.
Absolutely.
Anuradha ji, Indian government's response to the attack was quite swift, and we saw that as soon as the news of this dastardly attack was broken, almost immediately that was started. I mean, that to us was it. You know, it. I mean, it's strange that no evidence has been offered, and it still is. The blame game is going on. How do you interpret this? Well, I mean,
I do agree. The actions are and the reaction has been extremely knee-jerk. The first thing to do is to bring out facts on the ground. What was the evidence? And even before there was evidence, they were already rallying calls for revenge and war, and not just war on Pakistan, but also kind of branding all Kashmiris as terrorists, and that doesn't help anybody. That didn't help the poor tourists, ordinary citizens who were killed brutally. In fact, the first thing was like to bring the facts on the ground and to look at the security lapses and investigate who is behind it. These were some of the important things. And definitely there is a security lapse because this is a tourist spot. It is a frequently visited area, but it was completely uncovered. And those were the questions that India should have been first dealing with. And then in a matured way, if there is evidence, they should take it up with Pakistan. If there is evidence of involvement, the relations between the two countries have not been great in the past. They have taken a worse beating in recent weeks with, tit for tat statements coming in from both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what do you see? Have you seen or heard from ground in Kashmir? What is the aftermath of the attack on Kashmiris? That's something we hear very little about.
Yeah, the first thing is the there are many ways of looking at how Kashmiris are responding. The first and the immediate is of extreme shock and horror
Mm,
of the scale of the incident, of targeting of tourists who have not been targeted in the past, apart from one or two odd cases.
mm,
Tourists have not been targeted in the last 35 years. There have been civilian killings. There have been killings on targeted bases as this one. But, people killed for their religious identity or for their regional identities, that has happened in the past. But this was something unprecedented, and this is something that does not go down well with the Kashmiris because they do not see tourists only as something linked to their economic lifeline, but
mm,
also as guests. And Kashmiris are very particular about their ethos of hospitality. So for them, this was a big shock and a big setback. And it also brings in, for people who have lived in bloodshed, in pain and horror, and have seen lives being lost, have suffered immensely, people across the board, across Jammu and Kashmir, whichever side of the war they have been on, people have lost. There is a huge sense of loss. And I think that that pain has again been triggered by this incident. They don't see the pain of the tourists as the pain of those tourists, but they see it as a collective pain, because people who seen this violence at close quarters for
mm,
such a long time, uh,
mm.
they can understand that pain.
Yeah, but you see, in these moments like these, Kashmiris often find themselves, doubly victimized by the
Yeah,
event
definitely.
itself and
Yes.
the state suspicion. How does this, I mean, is
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
going on there?
right, right. But that was not the immediate concern. The immediate concern, of course, was of shock and horror. And the next thing, probably, I think that was very mature of the Kashmiris to do. They wanted to make sure that they were not blamed for the incident, and they made all efforts to help the tourists, right?
Mm,
And after that, along with that, there have been worries and concerns that
mm,
they will be made targets of this incident, and they will be questioned, and they will be asked to prove their innocence. And the onus is on them. That the Kashmiris will be targeted in various ways. Already there are calls for boycotting Kashmir, ending tourism. That is one that will hit them economically. But there are also some reports of students studying, Kashmiri students studying in different parts of India, being
mm,
harassed, being asked to vacate, being thrashed. And these were things that Kashmiris were worried about. They still are worried. But they are acting extremely maturely. They are not getting provoked. In fact, they are giving out calls for maintaining amity, brotherhood, a restraint, and not getting provoked.
Yeah, absolutely. And this time, as we are seeing the reports on Indian media, uh, the uh, the terrorists asked for first they asked for the names. So they wanted to, the implication is they wanted to sift through the eye of the religion. If you're
Mhm,
Muslim, you're okay. If you're Hindu or anyone else, shot dead. And especially if the males,
mhm.
or males were shot dead. But we also see at least one Muslim name in that who probably
Yeah.
went down while trying to save
Mhm.
others. Uh, do you think this was the first time we heard about this kind of filtering through the religious eye, or it has happened before as well?
It has happened before. I mean, we've had targeted killings of Kashmiri Pandits in Nadimag, Vandhama. We had Chatti Singhpura, 36 people, Sikhs were
Yeah.
killed in 2000 when Bill Clinton was visiting India. And in the more recent times, post 2019, there
Mm,
were targeted killings of laborers from outside Kashmir.
mm,
There were some targeted killings of Kashmiri Pandit migrant employees, some other
mm,
Hindus. But these were like one or two odd people being killed these in different incidents,
mm,
not at this scale. And in this scale, I mean, definitely it is shocking and horrifying that, people, first men were segregated, and then, they were either asked their names or they were asked to quote the Quranic kalma.
mm,
And I've now heard, and, some gradually reports are coming in, and those who failed to chant this.
mm,
And obviously, many Hindus don't know it. So, they were shot dead. But there were some Hindus who were familiar with it, and they could recite. And those who could were saved. So we've heard of, one or two cases now I was reading about this morning.
mm,
And which is extremely, extremely shocking. There is no doubt that they were communally singled out. But the perpetrators, whoever they were,
mm,
they are about, we don't even know the numbers, maybe four, six, seven, maximum a dozen people. They don't represent all of the valley.
that's right,
And we
absolutely.
don't even know whether they belong to the valley as yet.
Yeah, but the two names that have come so far in the reporting, uh,
Hang
they
on.
are
One
Kashmiri.
you talked about the Muslim who was killed. That's also an interesting story that needs to be told.
Mm-hmm.
Adil Hussain Shah.
After Hussein
He was
Shah.
a pony operator.
Yeah.
These people, because this is a hilly area, and they act as kind of guides. They carry people's things, and of course for that's their livelihood, and they use their horses for carrying people on horseback. Those who can't trek on those difficult terrains,
Mm,
and he was with one batch of tourists, and apparently they short there are different versions of the story, but while the terrorists were killing the tourists, he objected at some point. He objected and he said, they are our guests, why are you killing them? And they tried to push
by
him
Hussein.
back. He tried to snatch their rifle, which is, I mean, he made attempts to save some lives. He could have run away like all others were running away,
Yeah.
but he stood back and he tried to save their lives, and he was shot dead.
Unfortunately, he was probably the only breadwinner in a big family.
Yes.
Um, yeah. But two other names that have come, we have seen them in Indian media reported as being part of those the terrorists. Uh, these two names, it is also claimed by the Indian media that they were local Kashmiris. Now, the only two names that have been identified are local Kashmiris. Even then, what are the links with Pakistan? I mean,
I
how?
don't know where they're getting the names. They had no intelligence input. I'm a little skeptical of all these names that are coming out now. I mean, suddenly one media channel was also flashing photographs of, the four
Yeah,
militants,
yeah,
and it is strange. They had no intelligence inputs. Reports have come out that for 1.5 hours there was no army. I mean, there were only these local people
yeah.
who live around, most of them, the families of the pony walas, and people like that who are connected with the tourism in that place, local villagers, or the tourist police. There was no Kashmir police, there was no army for one and
I,
a half hours. There was
does it
no.
sound strange? I mean,
It
uh,
is strange. It is strange. I mean, Kashmir has been vulnerable for many, many years. And of course, the government has been saying post 2019 after the abrogation, and since the state was reduced to a union territory, the government has been making these claims that terrorism is completely decimated and there is normalcy. So these are important questions to ask. Was it misleading the people? Was it misleading the nation? Was it misleading people by asking them to go visit Kashmir for tourism and jeopardizing their lives? There is, these questions of accountability need to be asked. The government is responsible in many, many ways. Having said that, and talked about important questions of security lapses and intelligence failures, it's difficult to believe, that, suddenly they have names of
yeah.
who the perpetrators were.
Hmm.
Um, so I cannot comment about that.
Yeah. Do you tell us about the location? One, it is also reported somewhere. I mean, it's a lot of things are hearsay. So it's very difficult to know unfortunately, the state of media in both our countries is such that the media, the mainstream media, is such that one is not sure what to believe, what not to believe.
Mhm.
Some I saw one of the Hindi language channels. They were saying that the attack happened in multiple locations. It was not just one location. Do you think it was multiple locations or just one location?
No, this is just a big, large location because this is a cutoff area. It
Mhm.
is a landlocked area. The only approach is through, these narrow treks through the mountains.
Mm.
And so it's a large area, but I think most of the killings happen in the meadow there. And the meadow itself is a large, um, y- you know, place.
So the pictures that are coming are it shows a big, large, very vast ground
Meadow. Yeah.
on which there were people were just having fun and doing different activities and mostly eating. There were different tables. um, but how easily accessible it is from, how can it be accessed? Some people are saying that only you could only access it by foot or on horseback.
Yeah. Yes, definitely from the road. I think it is about at least half an hour's trek from the road, but I haven't been there recently. I've been there long back, in my childhood. Yeah, but at which point it wasn't a place as much. Now
Okay.
it is being promoted as such, but I think at least half an hour trek.
Half an hour track.
Yeah,
But
about kilometer, yeah, kilometer, 1.5 kilometers, and it's not a plain area. It's hilly terrain, so it takes longer.
it takes longer. So maybe if not half an hour, let's say 45 minutes or
Hmm.
an hour at the max.
And
But
and these people were there, like these killings, according to different versions. They've happened at least. It took about 15 minutes to half an hour
okay.
that this operation
And,
was going on.
and in that time, security forces could not arrive.
Could not arrive. They were not there.
They were not there.
The
That is
area, it
strange
seems,
enough.
was left uncovered.
Uncovered. That, I mean, that's strange enough. But even
It's shocking.
stranger is the fact that they could not respond in time. So I just keep wondering with
It's also,
people with
I need to point out that this is also an important thing. If they are promoting it as a tourist area, the first thing to do is to ensure that, there is security, there
yeah.
is enough connectivity. This place was out of connectivity. The mobile phones, mobile networking, the internet network wasn't probably working in this area.
Mm. Yeah, but Anuradha ji, at 2:45, some reports suggest it started at 2:30, some suggest started at 2:45. But
Mm-hmm.
before 4 o'clock, Indian media started relaying news about it. So if
Mm-hmm.
Indian media, the media people, the ordinary journalists could know what was happening. How is it possible that the security forces just didn't know and couldn't reach in time? They might have saved many people at.
Yes, there have been major lapses. There has been a very tardy response to what happened.
Hmm.
And these are things that need to be investigated along with finding out who the perpetrators are, and justice needs to be done.
I can't stop thinking about what happened in the recent Jafar Express terrorist attack. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Even there, we do not have much information what actually went on. We do not even have the accurate figure of how many people were killed, how many terrorists were there, how many actually terrorists were there, what is the actual real number, how many were killed, how many were killed by the security forces, did
Mm-hmm.
security forces actually engage them or not. So there's a complete fog out there on that attack as well, and not instead of asking the right questions, everyone in the media and among the politicians, they are jumping on Afghanistan and India for the blame game.
Mm-hmm.
I see the
That
secret.
is very unfortunate, both in India and Pakistan.
Yeah,
I think earlier at least media used to ask the right questions. In
yeah,
the last 1 decade, you see there is no reportage in the media.
yeah.
Hardly is. I mean, there
There
are
hardly
few
is.
who are
Investigative journalism has
very few who do their job. I mean, rest of them, it's you are they jump to assumptions, they draw their own conclusions, and they are happily giving war cries. And that is extremely unfortunate.
Absolutely. And in that, I mean,
And
if
and
you
that's our job, to bring out the facts.
exactly, that's our job. But instead, what the media is doing is arousing people's sentiment to a negativity. And there's a lot of hatred in the air. I mean, in every joint platform, I can see the hatred. Even in among the sane people,
Yes.
otherwise quite sensible, they indulge in quite sensible discussions and debates. But at this time, I'm seeing a lot of unfounded hatred. So, and that most of it is because we blindly follow the narratives that are infused in us by the states on both sides. Somehow we are unable to do our jobs, I think.
I think it's no longer the state. Media is an active participant in that now.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at our channels, you look at the Pakistani channels and the Indian channels.
yeah.
They're shocking. And I think as media persons, we should be doing just the opposite of that. We should be finding out facts. If
Although I must
the
say here,
facts are less, we should be talking about restraint. We should be calling for calm and a measured response and a responsible response. Yeah, we are doing just the opposite.
exactly.
We're becoming active
Yeah.
parties to it.
Although I must say, I don't have any, I'm not endorsing what Pakistani media
Neither
engages
am
in.
neither do I.
It's just sycophants everywhere in Pakistani media. I see sycophants of the military establishment. But
Mhm.
if I compare both the medias, Pakistani and Indian media, the kind of the kind of sensationalism that you see in Indian media, it's unheard of in Pakistani media. Pakistani media, you won't see such programs as we have seen in last couple of days on Indian media. It was,
Mhm.
and I thank God for that. That, because Pakistani media, TV channels, they have copied the each and every template of Indian media, because Indian media is, senior by at least 15 years to Pakistani media. And we copied everything. Instead of copying from CNN or BBC or these, sober channels, we just copied all the templates from, but
We learn all the
countries.
worst things from each other.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, coming back to this, do you think w- uh, what the response of the Indian government, what do you think will happen? I don't think there is a political solution still. A dialogue is possible in this environment, but what will happen? How will it pan out?
I mean, yeah, this environment, expecting a dialogue
Hmm.
is like, wishing for magic to happen.
Hmm.
But dialogue, I would say, is the only answer. I mean, in this atmosphere, I say on the Pakistani side, you have a very stubborn military establishment at the moment. On the Indian side, you have Hindu right-wing control. And so I don't see any kind of a political process happening.
Hmm.
But, unexpected things do happen. If you remember 2000, we were almost close to a war. And then things started changing.
Hmm.
And of course, the shifting geopolitics at that time was also, had a role to play.
Hmm.
It creates a facilitating space for a dialogue to emerge. The only move forward is a political process between India and Pakistan, and not just India and Pakistan. I think it should be extended
Within
to
India
rest
as
of
well.
South Asia.
Yeah.
Because the other countries, which are smaller countries in the region, they
Hmm.
are impacted by any belligerence between India and Pakistan.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We have common issues, common problems. We should be in moving towards cooperation. And even if, it is about cross-border terrorism, where whatever it is, I mean, these are things that can be resolved. These are things that can be ironed out by talking, through negotiations, not by breaking everything. Now, since yesterday you hear about all the diplomatic offensives being, diplomatic relations being kind of diluted on both sides. India calling for end to Indus Water Treaty, Pakistan snapping air routes, talking about end to trade routes, and even diluting the Simla agreement. Now, these are things that have happened through diplomatic processes over decades. It is a work of many, many decades. Of course, we've gone back and forth, and, relations have never been very great, but, in between there have been some good phases. And these are efforts that were collectively taken during those better times. So we are, shoving all that effort down the drain in one stroke. And that is extremely worrying.
Absolutely. But finally, Anuradha ji, what do you see as the most urgent steps that should be taken now by both sides, or to prevent, not just to prevent another attack, but how to go forward from this point that we are?
Uh-huh. I think on the Indian side, first of all, of course, the investigation and the incident, they should come out with facts rather than,
Yeah.
chest beating and all of that.
Mm.
And number two, checking security lapses.
Mm.
The government should come out upfront with the people. It should admit its failures, political failures, and failures at the security front, because politically they made that narrative, okay, tourism is the showpiece of our normalcy in Kashmir. And it turned out to be a mirage. And they should be upfront with the public and admit to these failures. Secondly, within India, it's not just about war cries. Now there are these calls for revenge are taking a communal shape. There are groups talking about attacking particularly Kashmiris, and by extension that means rest of Indian Muslims. And that needs to be stopped. The government needs to step in, but it's like asking the very people whose politics depends on hatred to stop this nonsense. As far as India and Pakistan, I think they need to stop retaliating against each other. You know, one says one thing, the other has to say two other things. I think this kindergarten-like approach needs to stop.
Absolutely.
There has to be some restraint somewhere to begin with, and uh,
I think it's women on both sides, especially women, should
because
hold the
you see on both sides, like
just housing, just
when
housing.
India, on the Indian side, as the media started off with, that Pakistan is responsible, even before the
Hmm.
facts are still not established, even before there were any facts. You jump to the conclusions, several officials are also saying the same thing. And on the Pakistani side, immediately in response to that, it was, oh, it's a false flag operation.
Yeah,
I mean, that doesn't help. It worsens things. So
versus.
somewhere there has to be a restraint.
Hmm. Absolutely, I totally agree. Anyway, thank you very much, Anuradha ji. I know these are busy times, and we a lot. You must be mourning, in grief right now, but you still gave us
Absolutely.
time. We are really, really grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard. In times of grief, we seek accountability. But accountability isn't just about retaliation, it's about answers, about examining systems that failed, about asking whether our responses heal or harm. After every attack, Kashmir is made to live the tragedy twice. First as a site of violence, then as a theater of reprisal. It is easy to blame. It is much harder to reform, and it is hardest of all to listen to those who live where this conflict is not a headline but a daily burden. We hope things will get better soon, not just in Kashmir but in India and Pakistan and in South Asia as a whole. Thank you for joining us. This has been Unraveled. I'm Marvi Sirmed.
Thank you.